Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Rohn, just statewide news service, and jbiztechvalley.com.
Well, good to be
welcome,
here.
Mark. We have a very, very special guest with us today, Dr. Thomas Douglas. You're the superintendent of the Bethlehem schools. Can I call you Tom?
Yes,
on
please.
a first-name basis. So we are very good. Well, welcome to the Jewish View.
Well, thank you for having me.
So, Tom, it's been a long time since I've wanted you to be on the show, so thank you for I know you're a busy guy, so we'll make this seem quick for you, I guess.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
We'll roll you in school and give you a test. You better be careful, Mark, over here.
What's your greatest challenge with the Bethlehem schools these days?
I think one is the biggest challenge that we're probably facing is the unknowns of the reform agenda and some of the leadership implementation issues that have come out.
So you're talking about Common Core when you
when
say
you
that?
talk about Common Core or the APPR and
What's
the testing that's out there. And APPR is really the teacher evaluation system that was put into place over the past couple of
Are
years.
you a fan
and
of that?
targeted.
Do you not like that?
It's hard to say whether or not you're a fan. I think anything that gets you into the conversation and having good dialogue about education is a positive. However, sometimes an over-reliance on numbers and tests take a little of the meaning away, and I think it's really more about how can we do more for our students and how can we enhance teachers' abilities as well as administrators' abilities.
I don't know, you can tell us the numbers yourself, that because of budget constraints and every school district has it. Mark and I really have many people on. We have Superintendents Connect, Albany of schools. One of their, they're all cutting, but people have told me that maybe the opposite of the Common Core and the judging of teachers is like, well, we have to cut teachers. So some of the new teachers, just because they're new doesn't mean they're bad. I mean, maybe they don't have so much experience, and they're being cut. And you have some old teachers that are there, and they kind of, if you would evaluate them, maybe their time to retire, and they stay in the school system. And the young good teachers that are energetic and maybe good, they get fired. So that would be the downside of the situation.
That can be one of the definite political conversations that are out there. New York is different than a lot of other states because of the rules and protocols that were put into place many decades ago through the legislative action and the Taylor Law. So what we do is we try to work the best with what we have, the rules and protocols that are in place, and we work with all of our teachers, no matter who they are, to make sure that we inform the education to go forward.
Do you have a problem with drugs on your, say, campuses? But because, we've had law enforcement officials on, they say heroin is a big problem, throughout the county, throughout the region. It's cheap, it's inexpensive, and people experiment with pot. It's a great gateway drug. In high school especially, sometimes middle school, they experiment with pot. Do you have a problem with in the Bethlehem schools with?
I think if you look not just at Bethlehem, but every school across the state and even across the nation
but I would think,
has problems with drug culture
But you can
in
only
the school.
speak for Bethlehem,
Right.
I thought, so.
But when you relate it to Bethlehem, Bethlehem's no different than the other schools out there. We do have drug issues that you have to deal with and address. The good part is how you address them.
Right.
I think when I came in, there was a movement at the time, there was an issue with methadone. We've tried to address that, one, with education. We have a strong Students Against Destructive Decision program and students that regularly help out to resolve the situations, because most of the students do not want it as a blight on themselves as well. We have a good administration system that we are looking into things as they come about or surface through anonymous tips, as well as we also have a lot of educational components where we've brought in parents, we've brought in the students, we've hosted forums to try to make sure that communication is the #1 piece for both the school and the parents and the students to work together to try to overcome some of these issues. Heroin, however, has been something that's been making a rise, and although I have not heard of it yet in Bethlehem, I can't say that we would be blind to it. We want to always be very proactive.
Are you going to be proactive, like set up, seminars or whatever that tell kids ahead of time, this is out there,
Yeah.
avoid it.
I
This
think
is what to
currently
look
we
for.
already are doing that with our health programs within the 7th and 10th and 11th grade. So our teachers are already having conversations with students in regards to the prevalence of the drugs, the choices and the decisions that they're going to have to be made. And then what happens is as we go forward, we kind of weigh that judgment on the time and the interactions within our community.
You know, the enrollment, because I am a resident in Delmer and Bethlehem, but so I follow them more than, like I say, the
Yeah.
other school districts that we interview. And enrollment's been going down, so I don't know, I mean, again, you're the Bethlehem superintendent. Is that indicative of the capital district? I mean, maybe the children, because we see that, I mean, put in a Jewish point of view, because in our Hebrew education, there's a few major temples that the enrollment, the Hebrew schools have gone down. Now, you could say maybe they're less interested in Judaism. Obviously, there's many factors in anything, but it just, maybe they're just less, that's what I'm trying to ask. Are there less children in the capital district?
I think what you're seeing is a sign of the times with the Great Recession and a little bit before that with the politics that go on with the economy of scale across New York State, that you've seen enrollment declines. Bethlehem's no different. I've been here 3 years now. Over the past probably 6 or 7 years across the state, enrollments have been going down. Bethlehem's has gone down about 4%. And what happens is school districts are adjusting to that as they go through with the budget, the tax cap, and all the other financial issues that have been happening over the past 3 to 5 years. But one of the things that people forget is although enrollments are going down, they sooner or later will stabilize. And I think we're getting very close to that point. 4% is not much of a drop considering other districts across the state have seen 5, 10, 15, 20%.
Really, so it has been around.
Right. But what happens is we forget that when we downsize with enrollment, we potentially downsize with our staffing. In this situation with the recession, it hasn't really been equal. We've lost over 16% of our staff over the past 4 years
Because of budget restraints?
because of budget, tax cap, fiscal issues. But the enrollment's only gone down for 4%. So you want to try to keep that in a balance. Just like if all of a sudden enrollment grew by 10%, you might have to have some increase in staffing. Maybe not exactly 10%, but you want to balance it so that the educational modalities that
interesting.
you're using will move forward.
I wanted to ask you about the tax cap, because you mentioned that. What is it, a real cap? What is it?
Well, it's a cap in name only. Our governor was very good when he came out and really developed the catchphrase of a 2% tax cap. There's really no such thing as a tax cap, and the governor even says this, that you can override it just by having a supermajority vote. Sort of goes against the majority rules principle, but the 2% part of that cap is only in the fact that it decides whether you need a supermajority vote or a simple majority vote. And that 2% that we refer to is just one number in, I believe, a 12-step calculation that develops what the tax levy can be before you go over that supermajority override.
Level, yeah.
And that can be confusing because if all of a sudden you see a school district that has like for us, a 2.99% levy increase last year, that was under our 2% tax cap calculation. So people sometimes get confused by it. The big thing is to ask, right? The big thing is to ask, are you under what the governor says is appropriate to raise for funding your schools, or are you over? If you're over, you need 60%. If you're under, you need 50% plus 1.
Okay, and let me ask you about you and
Sure.
Dr. Douglas. Where did you grow up? How did you get to this position? What is it that inspired you to become in management in a school district?
Yeah,
Let us know about who you are.
I really was born on the shores of Lake Ontario. I've been a New Yorker primarily the vast majority of my
What
life.
town?
Just outside of Oswego, New York, in a little town called New Haven, New York.
Been there.
And it's a wonderful place, but if you talk about snow, you really get snow in New Haven. So sometimes I think the students will say, oh, we'll never get a snow day because I'm talking 300 to 500 inches a year.
Really?
Well, Oswego County, when they have their snows, they don't want the state to come in.
Yeah.
They say, we know how to clean our snow.
Yes.
And we don't need your help. and
They have a very efficient system there.
the one county that the governor says, that's fine, you don't want us, we're not going to come in and mess up your system. So that's Oswego County.
So I grew up in that area. I went out of state a little bit to college at first in Kentucky to explore my youth, and I came back and I actually graduated from Oswego State University with an industrial arts and technology teaching degree. And then I started my teaching profession in the Rochester
industrial
area.
arts is like shop class.
Shop, yes.
Okay, what was your specialty with shop class?
Mine was construction, woodworking, cabinet making, as well as electricity.
I made lamps in woodworking. I still have the lamps, and I also made shelving. And they showed me how to, with the dowels and all that.
It's like I still have the very first tissue box I made in 7th grade when I was a student, and it sits on my desk in my office.
Well, that's a good inspiration for you to remember.
So how did you go from that, from being a teacher, and obviously you're the superintendent today?
I was a teacher in Rochester at a middle school as well as a high school. And several of my administrators said, you come up and solve a lot of problems for us. Have you ever thought about becoming an administrator? And it was a hard thing to do because you really want to work with the students, and that's really one of the biggest joys. I mean, even as a superintendent, my best day is when I can get into the classrooms and see the students and the teachers enjoying the craft that I've devoted my life to.
Did you do any electrical industrial arts? Did you electrical stuff?
Electrical, robotic, remote control. Really, that field can go all over.
Well, I don't want to taint this in any way, and I'm sorry if it comes out the wrong way. I'm sorry to the audience, but the shop teachers and the gym teachers were never the brightest in my school in Brooklyn. But you seem to break the mold.
Well, I think everybody holds their own unique potential. Is the best way I would say it. And my administrators challenged me, and really they put a lot of good effort and education behind me that I ended up doing my internship and worked out of Williamsville, New York for my administrative internship.
Yes.
And immediately after I finished with my degree, I became an assistant principal in Geneva City Schools, which gave a different environment because it's really a small city school with all the intricacies of a city environment.
Ontario County?
In Ontario County.
That's right. WGVA?
Yep, WGVA. And Hobart William Smith and everything. So.
It goes the opposite way. Mark was making fun of it, but on the contrary, I have 10 jobs. One is the TV show here. One of them I visit Jewish prisoners. I go to jail. You got to help them out too. Everybody needs help.
They let them out.
They let me out. I'm still here. But sometimes, and I see, being practical, some of these, they're not only Jews, everybody who's interested comes, and they're trying to get a GED.
Yes.
I mean, I think you have to have a GED to get out. And, some of these guys can't do it. And sometimes I say that, and I see my children learning algebra, trigonometry, and chemistry. I says, these guys, it's not possible. So, just like everybody needs chemistry and algebra, to me it's like on the contrary, what they need is more. So you'll learn about electricity, you don't need I'm just saying more vocational schools, and I think, and there's such a high dropout rate, which I was going to ask also. One of my questions was the dropout rate in the high schools in Bethlehem, but I mean, and again, we've had so many people on in Albany, it's 50%.
Yes.
And I just feel bad for them. I says, at least they're getting turned off, obviously, from the chemistry and trigonometry, what they can't do. So at least let them go to school and learn how to be an electrician and a plumber. They should be emphasizing that. I mean, that's one of my bugaboos, because I see on the other hand, and then they don't have any trigonometry, they drop out, they don't have any profession, and then I see them, and I see them in prison.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
That can be difficult. What happens is every child, every adult is capable of their own potential. And what happens is, even in difficult situations, sometimes we fail to remember that we can still help them move forward. Whether it's in the prisons, whether it's our GED students, whether it's our students are dropping out. One of the things I'm proud of, and that I'm very proud of our teachers, our guidance counselors, and our administration, if a student will stick with us, we will get to the finish line. At Bethlehem, we have a very low dropout rate, and that's wonderful for this community, and there's others that have higher ones.
What do you consider
We're about 2 to 2.5%.
That's very good.
And what happens is the state average is, I think, around 5 to 6%.
You know,
When they look at every school combined.
whenever I got a 98 on a test, 98% on a test, I bring it home and they say, "What about that other 2%?"
Yeah.
So you know, you got to do something.
Yeah. And that's a big thing.
What
How
does
can we
2%
change that 2%
Right.
of a graduating class? Well, 1% is 4 students.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you're talking about 8 students out of 400 student
I see.
class. But those 8 students are still very much important
Yes,
to
they
us as
are.
well as to the Bethlehem community.
That's right.
Sometimes the students go away and then they come back, or they go away and they usually end up, a lot of them, especially we've found from here, will go to a trade school or to like HVCC
Yeah.
to develop and get their GED and then move on into
What's
an
your
AS position.
What's your view on charter schools?
Charter schools, it's
Do they
hard
have
to
a-
have
do
a
they have a
view
place?
when you don't get all the information.
Okay.
I do believe every school has its place and its population. I just wish, being on the public side, that we all work at the same level and we don't have one level for one school, one level for another
Well,
school.
charter
one
schools
funding.
say that they have a higher level than
Yeah.
the public schools. So
Being in Bethlehem, I would ask them to compare apples to apples, and we will definitely stand the test of time that the public school system here
if there was
outweighs anything.
if
that they
there
can
was an
balance.
idea to bring a charter school into town of Bethlehem, would you oppose it?
We would have to look at all facets and the process that the state university system puts into place. Yeah.
But generally speaking, would you?
Honestly,
know?
it would be hard to say whether you'd be for it or against it without understanding the purpose and the dynamics and how it is different from the public education program.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious
Can I-
if a general,
You know, we're on
That's the
Jew-
good part about they have a process that
Yeah, to
until
work it
you
out.
get to that point, you really need to go through, because the devil's always in the detail.
details.
there.
Absolutely.
You know, we're on the Jewish view, and one of the things that's, I know that the Jewish holiday Yom Kippur, even though this year is anyway on Saturday, so it's not an issue, but then, you know, obviously I'm always commuting into Albany for something or another, and I saw, oh, we're off for Rosh Hashanah, the 2 days
Yes.
of New Year. Now, I'll just say, you know, one thing I may advocate for, because actually, I think that someone told me, and I don't have statistics, but the Bethlehem schools is the highest percentage, which is only 10%, but still highest percentage of Jewish population than any other school district in the capital district. But I'll just say on another note that they're very accommodating, because parents have come to me and think, Rabbi, I need a note, and, you know, take off 2 days for this holiday, 2 days for, you know, you'll miss a lot of school and a test
Right.
here and a homework assignment there, and I write in and they're very accommodating. So I'll say the nice, you know, a nice word. We never had a problem with this holiday. They have a note from me.
That's
as a
probably one of
rabbi.
the hardest things for a superintendent, when you deal with the yearly calendar.
Right.
Because what happens is the calendar shifts every single year.
That's right.
And when we deal with religious faiths of all backgrounds, it's hard to balance. So what we try to do is take as much of a sensible approach as possible, but yet meet within the requirements of the state
So
law.
do you give the day off for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur?
Only-
This year, I think it's Rosh Hashanah. Last year, it was both. It
Really?
depends
Well,
when
last
they
year was
were.
so early.
Right. It depends
Yeah.
when they fall on the calendar.
Right.
They started
Where
early.
Yom Kippur, I think,
was on
comes
Saturday.
on Friday evening
Right,
at
which is
sundown
Saturday,
is
yeah.
when it starts and then goes through Saturday. So
it's a
like this
non-issue.
year, we're actually playing our football game on Thursday night so that it doesn't interfere with any of our students' faith.
2 points of that.
It's
Okay.
a great
There
thing,
you go.
honestly, it's a great thing that the section does. They do try to pay attention to it, because across the state, not everybody pays as much attention
Well,
to
do
it.
you have a role in encouraging the different sections of the school district to be cognizant of the Jewish holidays?
Across the state,
No,
not
across-
necessarily a role. In
No, the
this
school district,
area,
yeah.
I think all the superintendents try to be as cognizant of it as possible.
Okay, because a couple of years ago, I think Shenendahoa had a problem where the parents were upset they didn't give their kids off for Yom Kippur, and that's, you know, and
Yeah.
then they said, well, but is there ever like an excused absence? Like you can, like, for example, if someone took off for the first 2 days of the holiday of Sukkot,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not expecting, everyone.
Yeah.
to
Although we would
do
be
that.
in school, the students would not be penalized for the religious faith.
And they wouldn't have to take an exam that might
Right,
be
and they
given
would
that
be
day.
able to be given
Okay.
equal and appropriate
Yeah, I
time
found
after.
that out because I have dealt with
I
students.
wanted
that
everyone
didn't.
else in
Yeah.
All right.
our audience
Well, I
to
said,
know,
isn't
too.
it good enough I
So-
say
It is
over
known
here?
because
Yeah.
we also deal with the Orthodox faith as well. Different holidays that happen at different times,
Times,
whether
yeah.
they're for our students or our faculty as
Right.
well. And the district's always prided itself in honoring those heritages.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to clarify. Very good, excellent.
You have a new process for paying the school bills.
Oh, school taxes, yes.
Well, you don't have to drop them off at Town Hall parking lot anymore. You got to go
Correct.
to Pioneer Bank.
Yes.
How did you choose Pioneer Bank, and why did you go
Well,
that
how do you
route?
save money that way? Is it
Well,
one
one of the ways
secretary?
is the choice when Pioneer offered to do it because of the amount that we'll be depositing with them free of charge. It makes it very easy
I mean,
to
they
choose
have
them.
3 weeks.
No,
of
what
holding your
happens
$1 million.
is they're not charging us for the service because we also deposit large sums of our school resources.
But
with
how
them.
did you choose Pioneer as opposed to Trusco, the motto being the hometown
Yeah.
bank, or Berkshire Bank, or other banks that are in the town of Bethlehem?
What happens is they have to be able to meet the requirements of the tax collection, and most of the banks may not wish to do that. I won't say which banks would or
Okay.
not, but Pioneer opted. What was very nice about Pioneer is that they also have Saturday hours, and they also have extended hours, which we thought were beneficial for our community, just because it's not as rigid between 8 and 4:30.
Well,
In
Sefcu has-
addition, we're also
Sefcu-
going through BOCES
Okay.
to utilize their service, which also gives a much discounted aid for us for using a BOCES service. for
And the
collection.
BOCES service to print the bills, to generate
Yes.
the bills. Okay, so may that machine break down. No. But Sefcu has Sunday hours over in Slingerland's Price Chopper
Okay.
from 11 to 2. So they do one better, but again,
Yeah.
Sefcu might not want to.
Or Price Chopper may not wish to have so many people,
Oh,
even
yes,
though
they do.
as a business plan, I would want as many people
That's
to come through
right.
the door as possible.
Exactly. That's why
But
it's
when you're
ins-
talking about the issue of taxes, it can sometimes have some difficult discussions that go along with the payment. But we sort of made the best decision that we could where we'd get to the majority of our stakeholders between here and Glenmont. It really helps the district have multiple sites.
Okay. Did it have to go through competitive bidding, or it was just?
No, what happens is with the service going through BOCES, that's basically one of the areas that is in-house.
I
so we
meant
would not
Pioneer
have to-
Bank.
No, they
didn't have to
basically
have-
have to enter into an agreement with us
Just-
for the
okay.
service.
I was at your meeting,
Oh.
school board meeting, and I noticed that you had a lot of rehab and a lot of building,
Yes.
new things going on in these buildings. And I kind of looked at it, and I'm thinking of my school. My school was built in 1939 in Brooklyn, and it was the same. I can go back today; it's got the same chandeliers, the same
Yeah.
floors, the same everything. Why did you need to upgrade the building? Isn't there some charm to something that's a little outdated?
There's always charm to like the styles that are there. However, when the water's coming through the roof and inundating that charm, that can be somewhat problematic. When you have hardwood floors under roofs that are having leaks, it comes a time, roofing cycles, that you have to, and that's a large part of this project is a lot of our roofing. But there's also a lot of time commitment to improving some of the infrastructure. One of the biggest things is at the high school, we were correcting a problem that was from previous building projects where there was galvanized piping and we put in copper piping so that we would not have rust formations in the drinking water and potable water. That, happily, I'm here to say, has been completed in record time. So they're moving forward. There's a lot of drainage infrastructure issues outside that have not been taken care of, or they've been taken care of in the past and they failed. And what we're trying to do is make it so that the fields as well as the buildings are to the standards of the community.
And the manager of this big project, Campus something?
Campus construction.
Campus Construction. And how did you choose them? Was it competitive bid?
That was through what's known as professional services request for proposals,
Yeah.
where we did an interview of roughly, I think, 7. We had applications to interview, and then we pulled in, I think, first round was 6, and then we
Uh-huh.
narrowed it down to 3, and Campus was selected by the board.
Gee, if it was Albany, BBL would have gotten. They get everything in Albany.
I will say BBL was part of the interview process.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, they lost out on something. The lottery money. Is it instead of, or is it in addition to? I mean, how does this?
It should be, we would hope, in addition to our state aid, and I think that was the format that it was rolled out as. Unfortunately, now it really is in place of some of our aid and has entered into the aid factor of what we're getting. In other words, officially, by state aid, with lottery included, we're supposed to get 26 million and a half dollars a year to run our schools. Unfortunately, what's known as the gap elimination adjustment, or the GEA, on our bill we get 26.5 million, but then later on in the bill it says, oh, the state's going to take back 3.1 million of it to help solve their budget problems. So we're actually getting shortchanged by about, right now, $3.1 million a year.
That equal to other districts? I mean, if you know, around New York State?
Pretty much it was taken out proportionally, but the problem is they are not putting it back proportionately. And with the right intentions, they're trying to give it to the districts that need it most back first. Well, most of those districts are being made whole from the GEA, but Bethlehem is still one of the highest in the area with $3.1 million a year owed. If you look at it by students, that means we're spending about $3,000 less than our aid should. Or we can look at it this way. That aid is not coming in. We have to actually, to run the school, make that $3.1 million up in our tax levy. If we had it, the levy could be down lower. In general, it works out, but you hate passing the buck.
Can't you sue?
There are several lawsuits out there right now for adequate education. One is there has already been a lawsuit that has been settled, CFE, but our Attorney General, who is now our governor, is not basically holding the court's order to put the money in place.
But can't you sue about the GEA?
With the GEA, there are several lawsuits that are going on right now. The Citizens for Equity and Education are trying to bring that up. And it's the same lawyer that sued for CFE in New York City to try to get the GEA removed. But I will tell you, there's been movement on the legislative side. They do want to get rid of it. We just need everybody to get out and help.
When the State Superintendent's Association lobbies, do you go down to the Capitol and lobby?
Yes, very much. We have a very active contingent here in Bethlehem, and I'm proud to say that over the past 2 years, they've helped to at least alleviate some of the budget stresses.
I was going to ask you about stopping for stop school buses.
Oh, anyways, those buses are out there now. If you see those red lights, please give them all the room. Obviously, it is a penalty and an issue if you stop a school bus with the lights on.
So. Do you have cameras on the buses?
There are cameras on the buses, as well as a report of a bus driver that catches the license plate is also
but doesn't the camera catch the license plate?
Not all of our buses are fully equipped with that, but we're trying to update them as we go through.
You're working on it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Mark, it was a very interesting interview with Superintendent, and can't you have Mark come to your school over here? Maybe you can get a little more education. In any case, it was really great. You're doing a great job in the Bethlehem schools. How many years have you been?
This is my third year here.
So things are looking well. The schools are getting nicer, Mark. Thank you over here. You don't have to complain about that. In any case, that not only the outside school, but in an outside environment makes for a good learning process.
The president of the school board gets zero. I ask him how much
I don't ask people.
How much do you? It's public information.
Yes, I make right now $170,000 a year, which is below what the governor makes, and I'm probably one of the lowest superintendents in the area for one of the best school districts, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much. Continue with the good work that you are doing, and do it with good health.
No problem. Thank you very much, Mark.
All the best.
Rabbi, thank you.